I just need to lock in is a phrase I feel like I don't go a day or two without hearing nowadays. We create this ideal of the person we want to be, the habits that they hit, the things we do that would get us to the point that would make us feel good about ourselves, make us feel like we're finally doing enough, and yet we struggle to stay able to consistently do those things. Staying consistent in the gym, locking in to get our money right, locking in to get that girl, whatever you can imagine it to be, we had these ideals for our life, and yet we don't even know where they land. We have this idea of what would make us finally feel good enough, that we're finally making enough progress, that we're improving enough, and yet we constantly change the rules of the game. We're looking up at this scoreboard that we don't even know the rules of. We don't know what decides when we finally win. As humans, we have this black and white ideal of what will finally make us good enough, what will make us feel like we're doing well enough. We see our current life and we constantly find different ways that it's not good enough, ways that it couldn't be improved, new problems that we need to overcome. And then we look at other people's lives and find the exact opposite. We find all the problems they have overcome, everything that they've locked in on that they're now consistent on. And we create this distance between us and them, a distance between us and the ideal of ourselves, the person who's already gotten the things we now know we need to lock in on, but we struggle so badly to stay consistent on. And I guarantee there's habits, things that you already do that you have locked in on without maybe even knowing it. You already maybe are consistent in the gym. You already are starting to work towards your goals. Maybe you're just consistent at bad things, consistent at the habits you don't want to keep. You have found ways in your life to be disciplined where you feel like it maybe is good for you or not. Yet we don't look at that. We look at all the things we aren't yet disciplined on, all the things we have yet to accomplish, have yet to stay consistent on, and then base whether we're enough or not enough or good or bad on that. That's where that good or bad, black and white comes from. We're constantly staring at ourselves and then comparing it to the ideal or to everybody else, and then finding ways in which maybe we need to try harder, maybe which we are not good enough. And that's all right. I don't want you to demonize yourself for wanting to improve, and you never should. Improvement's important, but improvement has to come from a certain place for it to be valuable. And that place is love for yourself. We should move away from this guilt of the past or anxiousness of the future. Ultimately, all we have is right now. And no guilt about the past or anxiety about the future is going to help you improve and become the person you want to become and be able to finally lock in. Locking in comes when you become the person who's disciplined enough and loves themselves enough to do the things they know they should do and feels good about it. Again, there are things you've already locked in on. You have discipline within you, and I know you have it in you. You wouldn't be watching this right now if you knew you didn't want to improve, if you knew there wasn't something you could probably be a little bit more consistent on and gain discipline to do. And yet, you're here. And so how do we gain that discipline? How do we become that ideal version of ourselves so that we're no longer wondering what we could be and we see what we are? We become that person that finally feels good and is consistent on what they know they should be doing. Before we start talking about discipline, we need to first speak on motivation. See, a lot of people imagine they'll finally get this point to where they make this shift. Something will happen, they'll get that one day to where they get that spark of inspiration. And we've all generally had it. You've had that night to where you plan to wake up and start working out. You're gonna start doing that thing you know you should be doing, and you feel like you're ready. You feel like you're good to lock in. You tell everybody, you tell yourself, and yet we don't keep our word to ourselves most times. Maybe a few days we stay consistent, maybe a few weeks, maybe a month. But over time, we eventually fall back, and we tell ourselves we need to lock back in. We look back to a time to where maybe we were consistent, back to a time that we were on a roll, and yet even during that time, we still didn't feel good enough. And so, how do we move past this? Well, there's no amount of motivation that's going to finally make it to where you're ready. You're always gonna have these doubts, you're always gonna have these worries. But if you begin taking action with discipline and consistency, you'll be able to move past this motivation trap that makes you think eventually you'll be ready. Eventually, it'll all come together and you'll get on this consistent roll to where you never feel like shit. You never feel like maybe things aren't working out. You never feel like there's a new problem you have to tackle, and you'll continue comparing yourself. That doesn't stop until you choose it to stop. That doesn't stop until you stop looking at everybody else and start looking at yourself. You're the only person you need to focus on. You're the only person you need to worry about. And not even worry, we just need to love ourselves a little bit more. Love ourselves and decide who the person is we're gonna be. And so when moving into discipline, we need to start by getting clear on what the rules are. What is this person? Because we're no longer looking at the scoreboard and we can't even tell what the score is because we don't know what the rules of the game are. You have to decide the rules. You need to tell yourself who is the person that I'm working towards and what will make me good enough. What will make me feel good in my eyes? Not what makes you good enough compared to everybody else. Not basing off of their rules or their scoreboard because we don't know them. We only get to see the ideals of everybody else. You need to choose the ideals of you. Who is the person you're going to live up to today? Who is the person you're going to hold your word to? And write a contract out for yourself. Define who this person is and sign that contract to yourself. A vow telling yourself, this is the person I'm going to be. This is what it means to lock into me, and this is why I'm going to be doing it. See, half the time we don't even know why we want to do it. We have these fake ideals of, well, I don't want to do this. I don't want to not have money. I don't want to be lonely. I don't want to be homeless. And, oh, well, I want to make money online, or I want to, get that job, or I want to get that girl, or whatever you want to call it. And then we forget about it. In this contract, you need to state clearly why this is what locking in means to you. What is the life you're going to live? What is going to happen if you don't get to live this life? Because you know it, bro. You know exactly what it is you don't want. And I guarantee it. If I asked you right now what's going to happen if you don't stay consistent, if you don't start hitting the gym, if you don't start eating right, and if you don't start working towards your goals, you know it. Deep down, you know it. And if you're going to be that little bitch, if you're going to be that guy that can't stay consistent, you're going to live that life, my guy. That's going to be your reality. But when you can shift to understanding everything you're going to receive when you can stay consistent, when you can become that person, when you are disciplined, you'll want it. You'll want it bad because you see how amazing life can be. It's no longer this dream, it's a goal, it's possibility. Dreams are only good for hope. Dreams are only good for the imagination, but goals are good for action. Goals are good for becoming the person you need to become. And when we write this contract, we are telling ourselves who that person is, what they have, and binding ourselves to getting it. Binding ourselves to saying, this is the life I want to live. And so what is that? Write out your rules, my guy. Because once you know your rules, you can actually lock in. See, the hardest part about locking in is even knowing what you're locking in for. When we start taking action, when we start working out, when you start doing it, half the reason you feel like you can't keep going is because you forgot. You had that motivation when you got started. You had that night to where you're finally fed up. You had those thoughts that were telling you how amazing it's going to be once you finally decide to do this. And then you forgot. And then you started working, and then the day started getting hard. And then you had a bad night's sleep, and you slacked, and you missed a day. And then it happened again and again until you became a piece of shit who couldn't stay consistent any longer. And I want to tell you this truthfully, because if this hurts, if this feels like it's a part of you, something you've gone through, because it's something I've gone through, you need to make this change. You know it's time, but you need to decide. And so once we have our rules written out, how do we move into staying disciplined with them? Because part of it is knowing that pain and pleasure. Part of it is knowing why it is we need to keep going even when it gets tough. And the way you're going to keep going even when it gets tough is becoming disciplined by making it a part of who you are. Who is the new person you're going to become, and why is it they keep doing it? It's not that you hit the gym because you're trying to get in shape. You're hitting the gym because you love yourself and you are in shape. It's not that you're trying to make money online and you hope you can become an entrepreneur. It's I'm an entrepreneur who goes after their goals and never quits. This is part of who we are. It's not somebody we hope to become. It's part of who we choose to be today. And when you can choose that for yourself now, you will become it. You'll believe yourself to be that person the more you work towards it, even on the hard days, even on the days it feels like shit, even on the days your old self is in the back of your mind telling you it's okay to take a rest. But when we can make that shift, the shift to acting in pure alignment with this new identity, with the person who has a life that we want to live, we receive it. And this is the whole part of locking in. Staying disciplined to become the person we want to become. And now that we know the rules of the game, we can follow them. We know what we need to follow, and you need to be truthful with yourself. There's no more looking back and feeling anxious and feeling guilty and being ashamed of the actions that you took. It's looking at today, looking at what you can do and doing it because you are that person. The person who tells himself they want to quit smoking or they're trying to quit smoking is not going to stay as disciplined as the person who says, I am no longer a smoker. I quit smoking. Because they're telling themselves what they are now, the new identity, they're binding it to themselves. But when we tell ourselves it's not who we are, it's somebody else, somebody we haven't yet become because we haven't earned the level or gotten to their point or gotten whatever you want to call it, we don't believe ourselves to be that person. And then we fall back into the person we believe ourselves to be. It's not doing, being, having. You don't do the action and then become the person who then gets the result. You need to be the person, then do the action and have it. When you tell yourself you're gonna lock in, and you don't believe yourself to be the person who's capable of it, you're gonna fall back. But when you believe in the identity that you've created, believe in yourself and your ability to stay consistent, you'll stick with it because you truly believe it. You know there's no going back. When I started my first business, I knew there was never going back. I knew I was never going to return to my old life, and that conviction carried me forward through those horrible and dreadful times. The days it was hard, the days I didn't want to work. I still knew this was my life. I still knew this is what I chose. I have this amazing opportunity. And the way that I was framing it, I framed it as something I wanted, not as something I had to ignite this pain in me to move forward. It was something I was pulling myself towards. It was something I was driven to do. It wasn't something some external motivation was dragging me towards. I didn't care about anybody else. You need to stop caring. Stop caring about how they view you, about whether your goals are good enough for them, about whether they're gonna be proud of you, because it's self-love, my bro. It's discipline for yourself and doing it because you love you, not because of them. Not because you need to prove some past situation wrong or prove everybody wrong in the future, whatever you wanna call it. It's you right now. There's never been anything but the present moment. And so when you can lock in here and now, not tell yourself you're gonna lock in 2 weeks, not tell yourself you should have locked in 2 weeks ago, you can begin doing it. You can begin taking that action once you understand those rules, once you become that person, and once you shift to you, my bro. It's always been you, and you'll make it through any of these times. Anytime you failed that test, you made it through. Anytime you didn't get the result you wanted, you've still been you. Everything's always turned out all right, so why won't it turn out all right now? If you're willing to go through some tough times, if you're willing to go through some suffering to create the life that you want to live, you will. And the more you align, the more you act and do these habits and be this person, the easier it'll become. It's gonna feel tough those first few days, my guy. It is. The first few days you go to the gym, you get really sore. The first few days you start working on that new project, it's exhausting. But the more you do it, the easier it becomes. We build these neural pathways. The human brain's amazing. The more you do this, the more your body gets used to it, the more your mind gets used to it, and the more your soul gets used to it. The more your soul identifies with this person and wants you to continue being it. Even on those hard days, you'll want to do it. Even on those days where maybe it doesn't feel easy, it will be, if you're willing to stay consistent and be this person. The final message I want to leave you guys with is just understanding the journey of 1,000 miles started with one step. It is going to be a lifelong journey. You are a lifelong project. And so, when do you want to get started? Yes, the journey may be long. Yes, there's a lot you may want to get done in your life, but the best way to start is by taking the first step. It's by choosing today to be the day, not tomorrow, not that you should have done it yesterday. You have now, you have today. There's not gonna be some Monday that you wake up and you're perfectly ready. There's not gonna be some day you feel like it's finally the time. You may think there will be, but I guarantee that's gonna recreate the cycle we've already gone through. So today's the day. Today is the day you choose because you know what makes you feel good. You know when you do things you want to accomplish, it's pleasurable. But we imagine that starting it's not gonna be enjoyable. We imagine that doing the bad habits will make us feel good, that it's gonna be so much better. But you know truthfully what deep down is gonna make you feel right. What's gonna make you feel like today was a good day. And you need to choose that for yourself. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today. There's no past that we're gonna look back on and feel ashamed of that we didn't already do this. You learned your lesson. You've learned what you've learned right now, and you're gonna use that to move forward, and I believe in you. So take that action, take that first step, and you'll thank yourself and look back with nostalgia instead of regret over the next few weeks, over the next few months. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy, I really do appreciate if you would subscribe. Thank you for watching all the way to the end here. I also have a free community if you want to click down below and connect with me, other like-minded people who want to improve and help create that game plan that we talked about to achieve your goals. Thank you for watching. I hope to see you in the next one. God bless, my brother.